statistics are quite glaring, actually. It's quite awful that, you know, the women that are leaving their very well paid and very hard earned careers are often, if you like, what's the word, disillusioned with the way in which the menopause is approached. And it's almost a don't ask, don't tell situation, a bit like if one was gay or lesbian before the 2006 equality legislation made it unlawful to discriminate against somebody on the grounds of their sexual orientation and religion and belief. And those regulations came in 2006. There was no statutory protection for anybody who was lesbian or gay. And so therefore, if you came out at work, same sort of principle really, if you come out at work and say to your male manager or your female manager, because some female managers can be unsympathetic as well, look, I'm suffering from the menopause and it means I get morning sickness, it means that I can't come in on time, I get blinding headaches, I'm in the office but I need to use the toilet very regularly because, you know, this is some of the symptoms that the menopause causes. And those sorts of conversations, because maybe often down to a lack of training or understanding, are very hard for a woman to have when she's quite senior in her career or mid in her career in terms of where she wants to be. And so quite often she does one of two things. She either has that difficult conversation and feels rather embarrassed, or she goes off sick and perhaps labels the sickness as something else other than the menopause. So she might say, for example, I've got a migraine, I've got an upset stomach, I can't come in, and just tries to keep it under the radar so that it doesn't affect her career prospects. But I think many ladies find that they can't control these symptoms and they go on for months and months, and then they suffer disability discrimination, which can, if you like, arise out of the fact that although menopause itself is not a protected characteristic, the symptoms that menopause causes could amount to a disability, because simply the definition for disability is a physical or mental impairment which has or is likely to last for 12 months or more. And on that basis, it's easy to see with long-term menopause symptoms that it can be a disability. So reasonable adjustments might mean giving the lady more flexible start times so that if she is sick in the morning, she can come in a bit later and work a bit later. Those sorts of things can be really simple that then retains the talent. And that's the talent of the ladies leaving a business, because they feel that either the employer doesn't understand it or isn't going to make those reasonable adjustments, or it's going to be detrimental to their career, or all of those things. So that's the sort of scenario that is faced. Unless and until it's a protected characteristic, though, it's going to have to hide behind other legislation, either sex discrimination legislation, where a woman is treated less favourably than a man because of it, or the disability discrimination legislation that I've mentioned. I think that there needs to be a level playing field and an independent, if you like, people's tribunal, in the sense that at the moment, women have to almost hide behind men to get the protection, and a standalone Bill of Rights would be something that could be welcome. Now, there's so much inequality in the workplace around gender, around all of the protected characteristics. If you think about it for a moment, and I think it's worth thinking about the historical development of discrimination legislation. Very briefly, transgender regulations were introduced in 1999. Then you had the then you have the 2003 legislation around religion, belief, sexual orientation, and then of course 2006 you had the age regulations. As to correct something I said earlier, it's 2006 that the age legislation came into effect. But you've got the Sex Discrimination Act dating back to 1975, the Race Relations Act dating back to 1976, and the Equal Pay Act dating back to 1970, and the disability legislation 1998, which has obviously been further amended. So the point I'm making is that in terms of a Bill of Rights, it's not really codified. There are lots of strands of things that, if you like, women in particular are suffering from that are not legislated for. And the menopause is just one example. You could say that flexible working was aimed at females, but it isn't, is it? Neither is part-time working. But nevertheless, we all know that often it's still the case that the man is still the main breadwinner in many households, or the lady who has the childcare responsibilities. So we've got a long way to go. But I do think the People's Tribunal, and in particular having a Bill of Rights, women's rights, if you like, would be particularly useful, especially when you look at the top of organisations and the makeup of boardrooms in particular.